great pleasure that we have Chris today giving our message. Chris, we know that God's blessing is upon you, has been already this morning, and is now. God bless you.
Thank you. Well, I know what I'm about to read does come from God, because yesterday I had 6.5 hours of uninterruption in my house during the middle of the day. And for me to sit there for 6.5 hours in front of a computer and read is not usual. But I want to set the background here, and I think this is very important, what I'm about to read to you, because Saul was supposed to face Goliath. But because he was insecure and afraid and didn't believe what he was supposed to do, the opportunity for David to face Goliath happened. You know, Saul was a foot taller, a head taller than everybody else. And he was the king. And in those days, fighting battles one-on-one was common. So, 1 Samuel 49. David puts his hand in his bag, took out a stone, slung it, and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. This is not the highlight of this message, though. This is what happens when God is with you. The resume of Goliath: champion fighter, won many battles. His height is 6 cubits and a span. In translation, that means 9 feet 9 inches. He wore a bronze helmet. His coat of maul was 5,000 shekels heavy. In translation, 180 pieces of grain equal shekel. So his coat was 194 pounds. So a 200-pound metal jacket. He had greaves of bronze on his leg, covering all of his tibia on both legs. His spear, just the spear of his head, was 65 pounds, which in translation is 600 iron shekels. Those were 65 pounds. And he had a personal shield bearer. The resume of David, the youngest of 8, a shepherd. He was pretty, or I like to say in my house, handsome for men, pretty for girls. And he has red hair. That's David's resume. We all have Goliaths facing us. Instead of the word Goliath, fill in the blank. Sickness, a broken friendship, a family issue, a financial problem, an addiction. Just fill in that blank. Whatever is holding you, or that Goliath in your life right now, that's what it is. Several months ago, this was before December, I came to Pastor and I said, Pastor, I really feel this calling for preaching. And I've been listening to this guy and Malcolm Gladwell, and I'll tell you, I haven't read a book maybe since high school, Besides the Bible, I haven't read a book. And if I go out to Nobles and buy a book, it's important. But I needed this book just for me to mentally take it in, because that's how I process stuff, and then just to highlight so I could remember. But at the first service, I put it out there. If anybody wants a book, I'll give you my book. I'll buy you a book. But then I thought, why don't we start like a book club? So if anybody wants to do this with me, I'd be happy to do it with you. God first. God prepares us for all the situations we face, just like He prepared David. God prepared David. 1 Samuel 33. But David said to Saul, your servant used to keep sheep for his father. And whenever a lion or a bear came to take a lamb from the flock, I went after it and struck it down. God prepared David. I don't know, a bear, a lion, a 9-foot giant, they're about the same, right? There was a point in the book they make, during World War II, Winston Churchill, it was an amazing man. I read a lot about him. There was a point that he realized, or that he knew, that there was a bombing coming. That they had cracked the Nazis' translation in the code. But he felt that if he was to go on the attack during this bombing, that the Nazis would then learn that he had uncracked it. So as he was in a bomb shelter and the bomb coming down, a memory came back to him during World War I. He was in charge of a naval fleet that was obliterated, pretty much. Everybody perished. He was the one who pushed for that offensive side. That memory stuck with him and prepared him for the bombings that would happen. God prepared David for battle. 2, believe in God. Trust in God. David believed in the Lord. 1 Samuel 45. But David said to the Philistine, you come with me with swords and spears and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of the host, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to put David out there as him going to battle, fighting for his death, and the problem that I had with my back. But it's the only situation I can give to you that I can talk about. And trusting and believing, and so we left Virtual Hospital, and we're making a left-hand turn on the Route 73. And I was just in so much pain, and I had my arms on on the armrest pushing, so it would take the weight off my back, and I would try not to be in pain. And my eyes were closed, and I remember sweating, and I remember this boom. And I opened my eyes, and my wife had pulled off to the side of the road. And I'll tell you, I just wanted to get home, and the only way I could feel good is if I was laying down and had my feet up on that. I don't think it's a coffee table, but the table in our room. That's the only way I could feel better during my back problems. And I was just this rage of anger came over me, and I just bit my tongue, and I just believed that my wife was doing the right thing. She just, said, I gotta find somebody for you. There's gotta be somebody that can help you if you're in this much pain. And I know it was meant to be, because Dr. Lee is this big, after I had my surgery and I was down for 2 weeks, this big this big doctor, back specialist, came from Chicago. He's in Philadelphia now. And for some reason, he had an opening the next morning, and he could see me. So, the next morning, my father-in-law, Bob, comes to pick me up. And all I remember is leaving the house, and from the house to the car, just sweating and sticking, like if you just worked out. I was just in that much pain. And for some reason, I don't remember driving from the driveway to the Virtual complex in the one in Morristown. But I do remember pulling up, and I'm in pain, and there's 2 doors. And this, again, the first door is like a minute clinic, like an emergency hospital, and then the other one's where you walk in. Well, we pulled up to the first door, which was the wrong door, and I go to get out. I just had to get out. I go to get out, and there's no leg movement. I'm just laying there on the ground. But here's the thing: if I would have went to the second door, I wouldn't have went to the emergency part where they had a gurney to put me on to take me to see Dr. Lee. So it happened for a reason. And I don't remember much from the gurney to the upstairs, but I do remember Dr. Lee putting up the x-ray and have the MRI and saying, you got to have surgery. And my response to him was, are you old enough to operate on me? And he's young, really young. And so, I give me his credentials or whatever and says, you don't have an option. You're going to be paralyzed if you don't get operated on. And a little bit of side note here. I saw Dr. Lee a couple times for my follow-up, and I always hug him. Like, how can you not hug the person that made you walk? It's kind of hard. And he goes, why do you hug me? I got to. So I see him at the Flyers game, right? And we're in the hallway getting ready to go up the elevator, and I see him, and I hug him. And then I look next to him, and it's his coworker. And I'm like, I gotta hug him. Maybe, help me walk. I just gotta hug him. Goliath trusted in his armor. David trusted in God. 3, seek out what God is calling you to do and don't stop. Even if other people are saying things, if you know you are doing God's work, do it. 1 Samuel 17:28. His elder brother Eliab heard him talking to the men, and Eliab, anger was kindled against David. He said, why have you come down? David said, what have I done now? I was only asking a question. In the book, it gives you, facing Goliath. This is the way I look at Goliath's resume now. A champion of fighters, won many times in battle. He's worn out. He's been to battle. He's old. His height is 6 cubits in a span. 9 feet 9 inches means he moves slow. His bronze helmet, well, his helmet, unlike all the infantry, was open-faced. His coat of maul, 5,000 shekels, or 194 pounds, was heavy and it slowed him down. His greaves on his tibia bones hindered his movement. The spear that weighed 65 pounds, he couldn't use it against David. His shield bearer, he needed a shield bearer because he couldn't see. He had double vision, they believe. In the scripture it says, why do you come to me with sticks? It's because they believe when you have this disease of growing, it deforms your eye vision and you see double. So when you look at that Goliath's resume in those terms, he didn't have a chance. Goliath didn't stand a chance against David. His size made it that he saw double vision, that while he needed a shield bearer, the weight of his armor and his spear held him and pinned him to the ground till David could cut off his head. Don't be afraid of your Goliaths. Try not to cry. So again, my 2 Goliath stories that I have for you. My best friend Jason, his dad passed away on Monday, and his funeral was on Friday. And I believe that blood was put in my life to make me a better person. At the time that we moved back from California, think a lot of you know this. We were living with my aunt and uncle in the basement, and I had broken my tibia, and my bones were in 3 places pretty much. I had a cast all the way from my toes, all the way up to my hip. I couldn't even go to school. I was homeschooled for 3 months. And I remember this particular time that they had invited me over for a meal. And I was just so scared to go over. Just felt so broken. And Bud came and got me. You're one of us. Come over and eat. So about 3 weeks ago, it's very hard for men to say, I love you. Very hard. I can say it to my wife. I can say it. For me, it's hard. But I got to say, I love you, Bud. We were sitting upstairs, and he said, I always loved you. So saying I love you was one of my Goliaths in life. Now I try to do it as much as I can, to say I love you to people. I even say it to my older brother, and I catch him off guard. He looks at me like crooked. Hey, I love you, Mike. So that was a Goliath moment for me. I've been listening to a lot of these. I've taken the 30-day challenge from Caleb. I suggest everybody do it, because man, it just gets you in that, it just gets you going. I just don't need all that other garbage in my life, So I listen to Caleb, and I listen to this motivational speakers, and this guy's name's Gary Vaynerchuk, and at the end of his thing, he goes, I challenge you to call somebody that you haven't talked to in the past year. That's easy for me. I haven't talked to my dad in almost 6 years.